The key stopped halfway, metal grinding like a bad tooth. I tried again until my knuckles went white. From inside my own house, Brooke called out, bright and cold. "You don't live here anymore, old lady." "Hi, my dears. Grace here. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me. If someone locked you out of your home, what would you do first? Call family, a lawyer, or the police? Drop a comment. I'm Evelyn Carter, 74 years old, and I stood on my front step with a bag of groceries cutting into my wrist. 2 lemons, apricot preserves, and a tiny tin of saffron I bought on a whim because it smelled like sunlight. The porch boards were damp from a thin rain, and my breath came out in short, shocked puffs. "Brooke," I said, keeping my voice even. "Open the door." "Noah's not home," she answered, "and I'm not letting you in." "This is my address," I said. "My name is on the deed." Her laugh slipped through the door. "Not anymore. You signed what you needed to sign." My stomach tightened. I didn't sign anything. "You did," she sang. "You're old. You forget." I set the groceries down like they might shatter and prove her point. Then I pulled my phone out and called my son. It rang and rang. Voicemail. I hung up and called again. Voicemail again. Behind the door, Brooke hummed, like I was a stray cat on the porch. "Put Noah on," I said. "He told me to handle this," she snapped. "You don't get to run this house like it's your little kingdom. We're done." "We?" I repeated, and my voice went very quiet. "You live here because I allowed it." "And that's why you have to go," she said, sharp and satisfied. "Go find bingo and pudding cups. And don't come back with a locksmith. The police will back me up." That last line didn't scare me the way she intended. It warned me. Brooke wasn't just being cruel. She was confident. Confident people have paperwork. I walked down my steps, opened my car, and set the groceries onto the passenger seat. The saffron tin rolled and tapped the door like a tiny metronome. Then my phone buzzed. One new text. Noah. "Mom, please don't do anything dramatic. I'll call later." Later? Like this was a scheduling issue. I didn't reply. I opened the folder on my phone labeled House. Photos of my deed, my property tax bill, the insurance renewal. I'd snapped them months ago after a friend warned me, over a plate of clafoutis, that families get strange when money and property are involved. At the time, I'd laughed and said my family wasn't like that. I drove straight to the precinct. At the front desk, an officer with Martinez, stitched on his uniform, listened without interrupting. When I showed him my deed and tax statement on my screen, his face changed from polite to focused. "If you're the legal owner and someone's refusing to let you in, we can do a civil standby," he said. "We'll meet you there while a locksmith rekeys it. We'll also take an incident report." Relief hit me so fast my eyes stung. "She has my medications inside," I added. "Blood pressure pills, inhaler." Martinez nodded once. "That matters. Call your locksmith now." Outside in my car, I dialed the number Noah used last year. When the man answered, I said, "This is Evelyn Carter. I need my locks changed back. Today. Police will be present. I can prove I own the place." A pause, then, "If police are there and you can show proof, I can do it. Give me the address." I gave him my address like a declaration. When I hung up, I stared at my hands on the steering wheel. Old hands, yes, but steady. Brooke wanted to turn me into a helpless woman on a doorstep. Instead, she'd reminded me of something I'd forgotten about myself. I don't beg. I drove back home behind the patrol car, watching its light streak across the wet road like a warning. My house looked the same from the curb, but a small black camera had appeared under the eaves, angled right at the porch. Brooks' security, watching me like a stranger. Martinez parked behind me. "Stay close," he said, and we went up together. He knocked. "Police department." "Ma'am, open the door." Brooke answered through the wood, syrupy. "Officer, Evelyn doesn't live here anymore. She signed papers." "I need you to step outside," Martinez said. "No, Noah has power of attorney," she shot back. My stomach dropped. Power of attorney. Heavy words to throw around when you're trying to erase someone. "I didn't sign anything," I called. "If she says I did, she can show it." The curtain twitched. A glimpse of her cheek, then nothing. Martinez checked my ID against the address and nodded. "We'll keep the peace while the locksmith rekeys it. If she interferes, we'll document everything." A locksmith truck pulled in. The man hopped out with a tool bag and a drill, took one look at the patrol car and said, "All right, ma'am." Inside, Brooke started yelling, threats, my son's name, the word lawyer, like volume could change the deed. I didn't answer. I just stood beside Officer Martinez while the locksmith knelt at my door. The first screw came free with a sharp metallic squeal. The second screw came loose, then the third. The locksmith worked calmly, like this was any other Tuesday, but inside my house, Brooke's voice climbed higher, thinner, frantic. "This is illegal. Noah will sue you. I have authority." Officer Martinez didn't flinch. "Ma'am," he said toward the door, "if you have legal documentation, you can present it. Right now, the deed and ID confirm Ms. Carter as the homeowner." The drill bit into metal. A sharp smell of heated steel filled the damp air. The door jerked open suddenly from inside, chain still latched. Brooke's eye appeared in the gap, mascara perfect, mouth twisted. "You're making a mistake," she told the officer, not me. "Noah has power of attorney over her affairs. She's not well." Not well. I stepped closer. "If there is a power of attorney, show it." Her jaw tightened. "It's filed." "Filed where?" Martinez asked evenly. She didn't answer. The locksmith removed the cylinder and held it up. "Almost done." Brooke slammed the door. The chain rattled. My phone buzzed again. "Noah." "Mom, please." "Brooke says you're causing a scene," I typed back for the first time. "Evelyn, I am standing outside my own house with a police officer because your wife changed my locks." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. No reply. The new lock clicked into place with a solid, decisive sound. The locksmith handed me 2 fresh brass keys. They felt heavier than they should have. "Ready?" he said. Officer Martinez nodded at me. "Go ahead, ma'am." I slid the key in. It turned smoothly. The chain on the inside scraped. Then Brooke's voice again, sharp and desperate. "You can't just walk in." "It's her residence," Martinez replied. "Remove the chain." Silence. Then footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. The chain dropped. When the door opened, Brooke stood there in my hallway, arms crossed over a silk blouse I'd bought her last Christmas. The scent of her expensive bergamot perfume mixed with the familiar smell of my home. Wood polish, cinnamon, the faint trace of last night's lentil stew. "You're unbelievable," she said to me. "No," I answered. "I'm documented." I stepped inside. Nothing looked moved at first glance. My porcelain spaniel figurines still lined the mantel. The Persian rug my late husband brought from Isfahan lay flat beneath our coffee table. But then I saw it. On the console table near the stairs sat a manila folder. My name was written across it in thick black marker, in Brooke's handwriting. I walked toward it. She moved fast, placing her hand over the folder. "That's private." "It has my name on it," I said. "It's paperwork. You wouldn't understand." Officer Martinez cleared his throat. "Ma'am, if that folder contains documents related to ownership or authority over Ms. Carter's property, she has the right to see it." Brooke's nostrils flared. For a second, I saw something unguarded. Panic. Then she lifted the folder and shoved it toward me. "Fine, look." I opened it. Inside were printed forms. Power of attorney documents. My name typed neatly. Noah's name listed as agent. My signature at the bottom. Except it wasn't my signature. It looked like someone had studied mine and tried to recreate it slowly, carefully. Every loop too stiff, every curve too cautious. I felt something shift inside me. Not fear, not sadness. Clarity. "This is forged," I said quietly. Brooke laughed. "Prove it." I looked at Officer Martinez. "I'd like this documented as suspected fraud." Brooke's smile flickered, and that was the first moment I realized she hadn't expected me to fight back this way. Officer Martinez took the folder carefully, like it might bite. "I'll note this as potential forgery and identity misuse," he said. "Ma'am, do you have a copy of your real signature on record? Bank documents, license?" "I do," I answered. "Several." Brooke stepped between us and the stairs. "This is ridiculous." "Noah knows about this." "Then he can confirm it in person," Martinez replied calmly. Almost as if summoned, the front door swung wider, and Noah walked in from the driveway, breathless, tie loosened, eyes darting between us. He looked at the patrol car outside, then at the locksmith's truck, then at me standing in the hallway holding the folder with my forged name. "What is going on?" he demanded. "You tell me," I said. Brooke moved instantly to his side, fingers gripping his arm. "Your mother is spiraling. I told you this would happen. She forgot signing the POA, and now she's accusing us of crimes." Noah looked at me with that cautious expression people use when they think they're being reasonable. "Mom, we talked about this. About making things easier. I have never signed power of attorney over my life," I said. "Not to you, not to anyone." He hesitated, just a flicker, but I saw it. "Brooke handled the paperwork," he said finally. "Of course she did," I replied. Officer Martinez addressed Noah directly. "Sir, your mother denies signing these documents and alleges forgery. Do you have the original signed copy or filing confirmation?" Noah looked at Brooke. Brooke's jaw tightened. "It's processed. I emailed it to an attorney." "Name of the attorney?" Martinez asked. Silence. The house felt smaller suddenly, like the walls were listening. I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, the faint ticking of the old brass clock above the archway. Ordinary sounds, steady and loyal, unlike people. I walked past them toward my desk drawer in the study. Brooke tried to follow me. "Stay here," Martinez told her firmly. I pulled out a folder of my own, real documents, my will, my property deed, my signature across multiple pages, fluid and unmistakable. I handed one sheet to the officer. "Compare," I said. He held both pages side by side. Even Noah leaned in. The difference was obvious. Mine was confident, slightly slanted, the E in Evelyn looping wide. The forged one was cramped, careful, afraid. "That's not the same hand," Martinez said evenly. Brooke's grip on Noah's arm loosened. She's exaggerating, Brooke snapped. Signatures change with age. Not that much, I replied. Noah swallowed. Brooke, when exactly was this signed? You were there, she shot back. His silence was answer enough. I stepped closer to my son. Did you watch me sign anything? He didn't meet my eyes. That's what I thought. Brooke's composure began to fracture. Fine. Maybe the copy looks slightly different. That doesn't mean anything illegal happened. It means, I said slowly, that someone tried to take control of my house. My house. I looked around again, at the staircase my husband built by hand, at the dent in the baseboard from when Noah rode his toy truck too hard into the wall at age 5, at the ceramic tureen shaped like a pumpkin sitting on the dining table because I never bother packing it away. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't aging. This was strategy. I'd like to file a formal report, I said. Brooke's face went pale. Noah finally spoke, softer now. Mom, maybe we don't need to involve police beyond this. They're already involved, I answered, and I'm just getting started. For the first time since I arrived, Brooke looked uncertain, not outraged, uncertain, and that told me everything. I didn't wait for anyone's permission. While Officer Martinez finalized the initial incident report in his cruiser, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open and my reading glasses perched low on my nose. Brooke hovered in the hallway like a storm cloud that refused to move on. First call, my bank. I need to place an immediate freeze on any new authorizations or power of attorney filings connected to my accounts, I told the representative. My voice was steady, precise. And I want a fraud alert added today. There was keyboard clicking on the other end. I can see a recent inquiry about adding a secondary authorized agent, the woman said. It wasn't completed. My eyes lifted slowly toward Brooke. She looked away. Lock it down, I said. Everything. Second call, the county recorder's office. No transfer of deed has been filed, the clerk confirmed after checking my address. The property remains solely in your name, Miss Carter. Has anyone requested certified copies recently? I asked. A pause. Yes, 2 weeks ago. Who picked them up? Listed as Brooke Lawson. Of course. I ended the call and wrote everything down in a small leather notebook I keep for recipes and garden notes. Today, it became evidence. Noah paced near the sink, running a hand through his hair. Mom, you're escalating this. No, I corrected him. She did. Brooke finally stepped forward. I was protecting us. You said yourself you didn't want to manage everything anymore. I said I didn't want to climb ladders to clean gutters, I replied. That is not the same as surrendering my home. Her lips thinned. I opened my credit monitoring app next. 3 soft inquiries in the last 10 days, all connected to a financial advisory firm I didn't recognize. Interesting, I murmured. Noah frowned. What? Someone has been preparing for something, I said. And it wasn't a family dinner. Brooke crossed her arms. You're paranoid. I closed the laptop slowly. Paranoia is fear without evidence. This is documentation. Officer Martinez knocked lightly on the open door before stepping back inside. Ma'am, the report is filed. I recommend you contact an attorney and possibly pursue a protective order if harassment continues. Harassment. Such a mild word for someone trying to erase you. I will, I said. Brooke's composure cracked again. You're turning this into a spectacle. No, I answered quietly. You did when you changed my locks. Noah looked between us, his face pale now. "Brooke, did you actually file anything officially?" She hesitated 1 second too long. "It was in progress," she snapped. "I was trying to make things simpler before something happened to her." "Before something happened to me?" I repeated. "What exactly were you planning to happen?" Silence. The clock ticked above us. I stood up from the table and walked to the hallway closet where I keep important originals in a fireproof lockbox. I checked the contents one by one. Passport, birth certificate, deed copy, insurance binder, my late husband's military papers. All there. But the folder containing my recent financial statements was slightly misaligned, just enough to tell me it had been handled. I turned slowly. "Did you go through my lockbox?" I asked. Brooke didn't answer. Noah stared at her. "Brooke, it wasn't locked at the time," she said quickly. "It is always locked," I replied. The air in the room shifted again, not loud, not dramatic, but heavier. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was preparation. Quiet, careful preparation that would have worked if I had simply stayed embarrassed on my own porch. Instead, I was standing in my kitchen, documenting every move. And Brooke was beginning to understand that I wasn't going to fade quietly out of my own life. Noah looked like a man realizing the ground beneath him wasn't solid. "Brooke," he said quietly, "did you open Mom's lockbox?" She exhaled sharply. "I was organizing. She keeps things scattered. I was trying to help." "You don't organize inside a locked fireproof box," I replied. Her eyes flashed. "You're twisting everything." "No," I said. "I'm clarifying." I walked to the dining room cabinet and pulled out my old fountain pen, the heavy onyx one my husband gave me on our 40th anniversary. I placed it on the table beside the forged POA documents. "This is what I sign with," I said. "Every legal paper, always. Ink, not ballpoint." The forged signature was printed in cheap blue ballpoint. Noah noticed. His face changed again. "Brooke," he whispered. She straightened, switching tactics. "Fine. Maybe I pushed paperwork forward too quickly, but someone has to think ahead. She's 74. "Yes," I said evenly, "and fully competent." "She forgets things," Brooke insisted. "I forget where I put my teacup," I answered. "Not whether I handed over control of my life." Noah ran a hand over his mouth. "Why didn't you tell me you changed the locks?" Brooke blinked. "I did." "No, you said you were thinking about it." A crack. Small, but there. I stepped closer to my son. "Noah, look at me. Did you ever sit down with me and explain power of attorney? Did you ask me to sign anything? Did we have one conversation about it?" He shook his head slowly. Brooke's composure thinned into something brittle. "This is exactly why I did it. She turns you against me. She makes you doubt." "I'm not turning him," I said. "Your paperwork is." My phone buzzed again. A notification from my credit monitoring app. New alert. Attempted account update. Declined. I showed the screen to Noah. "That wasn't me," he said quickly. I looked at Brooke. For the first time, she didn't argue. "Was that you?" Noah asked her. "It was precautionary," she snapped. "What if something happened to her tomorrow? We'd be locked out of everything." "You already tried to lock me out," I said. The words landed hard. Officer Martinez stepped back inside once more, holding a small card. "Ma'am, here's the report number. If you decide to pursue forgery charges, contact the detective assigned. Given the documents presented, that may be advisable." Brooke's head whipped toward him. "Charges?" This is a family matter. Forgery is not a family matter, Martinez replied calmly. Noah looked stunned now, like the room had shifted dimensions. Brooke, did you sign her name? Silence. It stretched long enough to become an answer. Finally, she said too quickly. I practiced it to see if it would match. That's all. The temperature in my own home seemed to drop 10 degrees. You practiced my signature, I repeated. It was just a draft. I folded the forged papers neatly and placed them back in the folder. You don't draft someone else's name, I said. You either have authority or you don't. Noah stepped away from her, as if realizing he'd been standing too close to a flame. I picked up my onyx pen and slipped it into my cardigan pocket. I'm calling my attorney in the morning, I said. And I'm requesting certified handwriting analysis. Brooke laughed, but it sounded thin now. You're going to destroy this family over paperwork? I met her eyes steadily. No, I said. You tried to. For the first time since she'd locked me out, Brooke didn't look confident. She looked cornered. The house was quiet after Officer Martinez left, but it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that comes after glass shatters, when you're not sure what else might break. Brooke retreated upstairs without another word. A door slammed. Noah stood in the kitchen, staring at the counter like it might offer answers. You didn't know, I asked him. He shook his head slowly. She said you were overwhelmed, that you'd agreed it was time. I am overwhelmed, I said calmly. By betrayal. He flinched. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I walked to the pantry, took out my tin of Darjeeling tea, and set water to boil. The ordinary ritual grounded me. Steam curled upward. The kettle clicked softly as it heated. Noah, I said without turning around, how long has she been talking about power of attorney? A few months, he admitted. She said it was responsible planning. And you never thought to discuss it with me directly? He swallowed. I thought you'd get defensive. I poured the hot water slowly over the tea leaves in my porcelain pot. Instead, she forged my signature. Upstairs, I heard pacing. I carried my cup to the dining table and opened my laptop again. This time, I pulled up my email archive and searched one word: attorney. 3 months ago, Brooke had emailed me an article titled, When Parents Resist Help. I hadn't responded. 2 weeks later, she'd asked casually if I knew where my property documents were stored. I'd brushed it off. Now the pattern looked different. Calculated. I opened my phone and dialed my longtime attorney, Harold Benton. He was semi-retired, slow to answer emails, but meticulous. He picked up on the third ring. Evelyn? Harold, I said. I need to come in tomorrow. Urgent. He heard something in my tone. What happened? My daughter-in-law forged power of attorney papers and changed the locks on my house. A pause. Bring everything, he said quietly. When I hung up, I felt steadier. Action had weight. It anchored me. Noah sank into a chair. If this becomes criminal, it already is, I interrupted. Upstairs, footsteps approached the staircase. Brooke descended slowly, composed again, mascara untouched, as if she'd reapplied it. You're blowing this out of proportion, she said evenly. No official filing went through, no money moved, nothing happened. That's not true, I replied. Something happened. You attempted to assume legal control over me and my property. She tilted her head. Attempted isn't a crime. It can be, I said. She crossed her arms. You can't prove intent. I looked at her calmly. You requested certified deed copies. You accessed my lockbox. You practiced my signature. You attempted account updates. That's not confusion. That's sequence. Noah looked at her again, and this time there was distance in his eyes. Brooke's voice sharpened. Fine. Let's talk sequence. You're 74. What happens if you fall? If you're hospitalized? Someone has to make decisions. I have a will, I replied, and I have capacity. You won't forever, she said. The words hung there. It wasn't concern. It was calculation. I closed my laptop gently. You don't get to rush my decline because it's convenient for you. Her jaw tightened. I stood and walked to the hallway, where the new lock gleamed in place. I ran my fingers over the cool metal. This house is not a transitional asset, I said quietly. It is not a stepping stone. It is my home. Brooke's composure slipped just slightly. You can't cut us out. I'm not cutting anyone out, I answered. I'm cutting fraud out. Noah rubbed his temples. Brooke, did you plan to transfer anything else? She didn't answer. That silence again. And this time, it felt heavier. I walked back into the kitchen and opened my freezer. Inside, behind bags of frozen blueberries and a forgotten container of bisque, was a small metal cash box. Emergency funds. I checked it. Untouched. Good. But the fact that I felt the need to check told me everything. I turned to face them both. Tomorrow, I said evenly, I meet my attorney. After that, I file a formal forgery complaint. I also notify the bank fraud department and request written confirmation of all attempted changes. Brooke's eyes flashed. You're serious? Yes. Noah stood slowly. Maybe we should all cool down. I am cool, I said. That was the part Brooke had miscalculated. She thought humiliation would make me emotional. That embarrassment would keep me quiet. That being called old would make me shrink. Instead, it made me precise. Upstairs, a drawer slammed again. Brooke disappeared into the bedroom. Noah lingered. Mom, he said quietly, are you planning to press charges? I met his eyes. I'm planning, I said, to make sure no one ever thinks they can erase me again. And for the first time, I saw fear, not in Brooke, in him. Morning came sharp and bright, like it had no patience for my feelings. I woke before my alarm, lay still for a moment, and listened. No footsteps upstairs. No clinking in the kitchen. The house felt like a stage after the actors have gone home. I dressed carefully. Soft slacks, a cardigan, my pearl studs. Not for vanity, for armor. Then I made oatmeal with chopped dates and a pinch of cardamom, because routine is one of the few things people can't take from you unless you let them. Noah appeared in the doorway as I rinsed my bowl. He looked exhausted, like he'd slept in bursts. Brooke went to her sister's, he said. Good, I replied without looking up. Less noise? He shifted. I'm coming with you to the lawyer. That's up to you, I said, but don't come to smooth things over. Come to hear the truth. He nodded once, too quickly. On the drive, he tried again. Mom, if you press charges, it'll follow her forever. It should, I said, eyes on the road. That's what consequences are. They follow you so you remember not to do it again. He went quiet. Harold Benton's office smelled like lemon oil and old paper. The same building downtown with the brass plaque by the door and the window blinds that always looked half-closed, like the place kept secrets for a living. Harold himself came out to greet me, tall and stooped, suspenders under his suit jacket, His eyes took in Noah and narrowed slightly. "I assume you're the son," he said. Noah offered a hand. Harold didn't take it. He simply nodded and led us inside. We sat in a room with shelves of binders, framed diplomas, and a bowl of hard candies that had been the same flavor since the late 90s. I placed the folder of forged papers on the table, along with my real documents and screenshots from my credit alerts. Harold opened everything slowly, methodically. He didn't rush. He read. He compared. He asked me for dates. He asked me to describe the lockout from the first moment I turned the key. When I finished, he leaned back and looked at Noah. "Did you witness your mother sign any power of attorney documents?" Harold asked. Noah's throat worked. "No." "Did you authorize your wife to sign on your mother's behalf?" Harold continued. "No," Noah said, more firmly. Harold nodded, as if checking a box. Then he looked at me. "Evelyn, you were correct to involve police. This is serious. We can do 3 things immediately." He held up a finger. 1. We execute a fresh, properly notarized statement of capacity and intent, making it clear you have not granted power of attorney and you do not consent to any such filings. Second finger. 2. We file for an injunction if she attempts to interfere with access to your property again. Third finger. 3. You notify every institution she might target, banks, insurers, investment accounts, that any POA presented is fraudulent, and you request that they flag your profile for attempted identity takeover. Noah's face had gone gray. "Identity takeover," he repeated. Harold glanced at him. "That's what it is when someone tries to assume control of another adult's assets under false authority." I slid my hands together. "Do it." Harold nodded. "Also," he added, "I recommend you change your mailing situation. If she had access to your lockbox, she may have had access to account numbers." "I already set up a hold with the post office," I said, "and I'm renting a P.O. box today." Harold's eyebrows lifted. "Good." Noah looked at me as if seeing me clearly for the first time in years. "You planned all of this." "I reacted," I corrected. "Quickly, because I had to." Harold began drafting documents on his computer, the keys clicking like tiny hammers. While he worked, he asked Noah to step out and make a call. "To your wife," Harold said, "and put it on speaker if you're willing." Noah hesitated, then nodded and walked into the hallway with his phone. Brooke picked up on the second ring. Her voice was sweet at first, then edged with irritation. "What now?" "I'm at Mom's attorney," Noah said. A pause. "Why?" "Because you forged documents," he said, and his voice cracked on the word forged. Brooke's tone hardened. "I didn't forge. I helped." "You practiced her signature," Noah said. Another pause. Longer. Then Brooke sighed dramatically. "Noah, listen to me. Your mother is manipulating you. She's always needed to be in control. I was trying to protect us from her decisions." "From what decisions?" Noah asked. "From giving everything away," Brooke snapped. "From leaving you with nothing. She's stubborn and she doesn't understand what things cost now." My stomach turned. Not because I was surprised, but because she'd finally said it out loud. Harold's office door was ajar. He could hear every word. Noah's voice went small. "So, this was about money." "It was about security," Brooke insisted quickly. "Our security, your future. And frankly, she doesn't need that house all to herself. She could be in a nice community, with help." Noah looked into the room at me, his eyes wet, and I knew he'd heard the same thing I had. not help, removal, placement, like I was furniture. I stood up and walked into the hallway. Noah lowered the phone slightly, startled. "Brooke," I said clearly, "this is Evelyn. You changed my locks. You forged documents. You accessed my private papers. You attempted to alter my financial accounts." Silence on the line. Then she said, flat and venomous, "You can't prove any of it." "Oh," I replied, and my voice didn't shake at all. "I already am." Harold called from inside, calm as ever. "Evelyn, when you're ready, I'll notarize the statement." I looked at Noah. "I'm ready." And in that moment, I felt the shift again. Not in the room, but in the balance of power. Brooke had been betting I would be too embarrassed to fight. She was wrong. By the time we left Harold's office, something fundamental had shifted. Not in the paperwork, that would take time. In Noah. He drove us back in silence, both hands gripping the steering wheel too tightly. The city moved past in reflections across the windshield, but he barely seemed to see it. "She said you might leave everything to charity," he muttered finally. I turned my head slowly. "And that justifies forgery?" "No," he said quickly. "No, I didn't realize she thought that way." "She didn't think," I replied. She calculated. When we pulled into the driveway, Brooke's car was already there. She stood on the porch as we stepped out, arms folded, expression sharpened into something brittle and theatrical. "So," she called down coolly, "did your lawyer scare you into thinking I'm some criminal mastermind?" Noah didn't answer her immediately. That silence unsettled her more than shouting would have. I walked up the steps calmly. "Harold advised me to document every contact from you going forward." Her eyes flicked to Noah. "You're recording me now?" "No," I said evenly, "but I don't need to. You've said enough." She laughed, loud and artificial. "This is insane. You're tearing this family apart because you're too proud to admit you need help." "I need help with gutters," I said, "not guardianship." Noah stepped between us. "Brooke, why didn't you just talk to her?" "I tried," she snapped. "She shuts down every conversation about the future." "The future of what?" I asked. "My estate or your lifestyle?" Her face flushed. "You think I married you for your house?" She shot at Noah defensively. "That's not what I said," he answered quietly. But it was in his eyes now. The question. Brooke's voice rose. "We have student loans. We have a mortgage. We have plans. And she's sitting on a fully paid house like it's a museum." "I am sitting," I corrected calmly, "in the house I paid for, with money I earned, over decades." She stepped closer to me, dropping her voice low and sharp. "You won't live forever." There it was again. Not concern. Timeline. Noah visibly recoiled. "Brooke." "What?" she said, throwing her hands up. "It's reality. We have to think ahead." "Thinking ahead," I said quietly, "does not include forging my signature and locking me out." She turned to Noah again. "You're just going to let her humiliate me like this?" He didn't answer. The wind picked up slightly, brushing the maple leaves above us. The small black camera under the eaves blinked red. I noticed it. "You installed that?" I asked. "For security," she said. "For watching me?" I asked calmly. Her lips tightened. I walked to the front door and touched the new lock. Solid. Clean. Mine. "Brooke," I said evenly, "you have two choices. You can stay here as my guest under my conditions. Or you can leave. Her eyes widened. You can't evict me. I can revoke permission, I replied. You have no lease, no ownership, no power of attorney. She looked at Noah desperately. Say something. He swallowed. Maybe we should give Mom some space. That was the moment her mask cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, but enough. You're choosing her, she said flatly. No, he whispered. I'm choosing what's legal. She stared at him like she'd never seen him before. Then she turned back to me, and her voice dropped into something colder than anger. You think you've won, she said. You haven't. I held her gaze. I didn't start a war, I answered. I ended a trespass. For a long second, none of us moved. Then Brooke grabbed her purse from the hall table with a sharp, jerking motion. This isn't over, she said. No, I agreed calmly. It isn't. And as she walked past us toward the driveway, I didn't feel fear. I felt inevitability. She had tried to rush my disappearance. Now she would have to face what she'd set in motion. Brooke didn't leave that day. She drove off in a storm of gravel and ego, but by late afternoon, her car was back in the driveway. Not parked neatly, angled, defiant. I was in the living room reviewing copies of the notarized statement Harold had prepared when I heard the door open without a knock. She walked in like nothing had happened. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just tension, wrapped in lipstick. Noah came down the stairs almost immediately. Brooke. I live here, she said sharply before he could finish. You live here because my mother allows it, he replied, and the fact that he said it out loud shifted something again. Her eyes snapped toward him. So, that's the new script? No, he said quietly. That's the truth. She looked at me then, and there was no pretense left. You're enjoying this. I'm stabilizing my life, I said evenly. She tossed her purse onto the chair and crossed her arms. You think a lawyer and a police report scare me? Nothing was filed. Nothing was transferred. There's no loss. Attempted fraud is still fraud, I replied. You can't prove intent, she repeated, clinging to the phrase like a raft. I folded my hands. Intent is shown through pattern. You gathered deed copies. You practiced my signature. You attempted financial updates. You changed my locks. Her jaw flexed. Noah stepped forward. Brooke, why did you rush this? I didn't rush, she snapped. I planned. There it was again. Planned. For what timeline? I asked calmly. She hesitated. For when she's not capable anymore, she said finally. I am capable now, I replied. That won't last forever, she shot back. And your solution, I said, was to accelerate it? Noah inhaled sharply. Brooke threw her hands up. You're twisting everything. I was protecting our future. At my expense, I answered. Silence. Then her expression shifted, calculating again, quieter this time. Fine, she said slowly. Let's be practical. If you're so certain nothing can touch you, show us the will. Noah looked startled. Brooke. What? She demanded. If she trusts us so little, maybe she doesn't intend to leave anything to you. I didn't flinch. My will is private. So that's a yes, she said, eyes narrowing. That's none of your business, I replied. Her breathing quickened slightly. She wasn't angry now. She was cornered and searching. Are you planning to cut him out? She asked. I am planning, I said carefully, to protect myself. Noah's voice was strained. Mom, I don't care about the money. Then this conversation shouldn't matter, I said gently. He looked at Brooke. She looked away. That told me more than any confession. Suddenly, Brooke's phone buzzed loudly in her hand. She glanced at it, and for the first time since this began, real alarm crossed her face. What? Noah asked. She turned the screen away too quickly. Brooke, he said, firmer now. What is it? She hesitated, then snapped, It's nothing. But her hands weren't steady. I watched closely, because whatever was on that screen hadn't been part of her plan. And for the first time, I sensed something larger than forged papers and changed locks. Something that might finally tip the balance completely. Brooke's face had drained of color. Noah noticed it too. What is it? He asked again, stepping closer. She locked the screen instantly. It's nothing. Then show me, he said. She hesitated. That hesitation was louder than any confession. I didn't move from my chair. I didn't need to. The air in the room had changed, thicker, charged. Brooke had been on offense since the moment she changed my locks. Now she was reacting. Noah, she said, lowering her voice, not in front of her. In front of me, I corrected calmly. This is my house. Her jaw tightened, but she handed him the phone. He looked down. I watched his expression shift from confusion to disbelief to something colder. Brooke, he said slowly, what is this? She snatched the phone back. It's a misunderstanding. From who? He demanded. I stood up now, slowly. What misunderstanding? Noah looked at me. It's from the bank. My stomach stilled. They flagged an attempted submission of power of attorney documentation this morning, he continued, voice tight. Digital upload. It was rejected for signature inconsistency. I felt something settle into place inside me. This wasn't planning for the future. This was active. Today, while we were at Harold's office, I looked at Brooke carefully. You said nothing was filed. It wasn't finalized, she shot back. It was just sent for review. While I was sitting with my attorney, I asked. She didn't answer. Noah's voice sharpened. You told me you were done with it. I was protecting us, she snapped again, the phrase starting to crack under repetition. Once it's processed, everything would have been easier. For who? I asked. For us, she shouted. For stability. You mean for access, I said. She turned toward me, fury replacing calculation. You don't understand how much pressure we're under. Pressure, I replied evenly, does not entitle you to steal control. Her breathing grew uneven now. She wasn't performing anymore. She was unraveling. Noah stepped back from her like he needed space to think. You submitted forged documents today, after the police were here. It was already drafted, she insisted. I clicked send. He stared at her. You clicked send. I could see it in his eyes. The moment he realized this wasn't caution, it wasn't fear about my health, it was acceleration. And she had done it anyway. I want to see the email, I said. Brooke laughed bitterly. You're not entitled to my private accounts. I am entitled, I replied calmly, to see evidence when it involves my identity. She didn't move. Noah reached for the phone again. This time she didn't resist. He scrolled. It's addressed to a financial advisory firm, he said quietly. Subject line, POA submission, urgent. Read it, I said. He hesitated, then did. Attached is the executed power of attorney, granting authority to manage accounts and property for Evelyn Carter. Please expedite processing due to health concerns. Health concerns. I felt the word like a cold hand on my spine. What health concerns? I asked softly. Brooke's composure shattered. You're 74. That's the concern. No diagnosis? I asked. No evaluation? Just age? You can't pretend time isn't real, she shot back. I don't, I said. I respect it. You try to weaponize it. Noah lowered the phone slowly. You told them she had declining capacity. Brooke didn't answer. Do I? I asked him quietly. He looked at me. Really looked. No, he said. Silence settled in the room again, but it was different now. Not tense. Clear. I walked toward the hallway table and picked up the folder Harold had given me. Fresh notarized statement, stamped and dated. I filed documentation today affirming my full capacity, I said. I notified my bank, I flagged my accounts, and tomorrow I meet with the fraud department in person. Brooke's breathing quickened. You don't have proof I sent that? I tilted my head slightly. The metadata will. Her face changed. That landed. Noah ran both hands over his face. Why would you risk this? Because she would never fight back, Brooke snapped suddenly, turning on me. That's why. She's polite. She avoids conflict. She cares too much about appearances. I held her gaze. You miscalculated, I said. Her eyes flashed with something that wasn't anger anymore. It was fear. You can't push me out, she whispered. I don't have to, I replied. You're doing that yourself. Noah's voice came out low and steady. Brooke, if there's even a chance this becomes criminal, you need to stop, right now. She looked at him as if betrayed. Stop what? She demanded. Everything, he said. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Brooke stepped back slowly, clutching her phone to her chest like it was the last thing anchoring her. This isn't over, she said quietly. No, I agreed. Now it's official. And in that moment, I knew something irreversible had happened. She hadn't just tried to control my house, she had documented her own intent. That night, Noah didn't sleep in the bedroom. I heard him on the couch, shifting, the springs complaining every time he turned. The house had its own language, and tonight it sounded like strain. I woke early again. Habit and vigilance. I didn't go upstairs. I didn't knock. I didn't chase Brooke. I made coffee the way my husband taught me, strong, with a pinch of cinnamon, and I set one mug on the counter and one at the table. I didn't offer one to Brooke. I simply left the second mug there, like a quiet test. Would she come down and act human, or would she keep playing a role? At 7:30, she descended. She looked composed in a way that felt practiced, like she'd been rehearsing in the mirror. Calm face, soft voice, controlled eyes. Evelyn, she said, as if last night hadn't happened, as if she hadn't tried to upload forged authority over my life. Can we talk like adults? We are talking like adults, I replied. Adults face consequences. Noah rose from the couch, rubbing his eyes. He stood behind her, not beside her. Brooke noticed that immediately. Her gaze flicked to him, then back to me. I made a mistake, she said carefully. I was scared. I panicked. I shouldn't have changed the locks. I want to be very clear, I said. The locks were the loudest part, not the worst part. Her mouth tightened. Fine. The paperwork, too. I shouldn't have sent anything. Noah's voice was hoarse. You told them she had health concerns. I said concerns, Brooke corrected quickly. That's not a diagnosis. And you know exactly how it reads, Noah said, and there was steel in it now. Brooke's eyes flashed. Then she switched again, softening. Noah, please. We can fix this. Your mom is upset, I understand. But if she takes this to the police as forgery, it'll ruin everything. It didn't ruin everything, I said. It exposed everything. She stepped closer to the table, palms out. What do you want? Just tell me what you want. There it was. Not sorry. Negotiating. I sipped my coffee slowly. I want my life back. Fully. Quietly. Permanently. Brooke nodded too fast. Okay, great. We can do that. I'll back off. No, I said. Not back off. You will leave. Her expression froze. Noah's head snapped toward me. Then he exhaled, like he'd been expecting those words but still wasn't ready to hear them. Brooke's voice sharpened. You can't just throw me out. I can revoke permission for you to be in my home, I replied. Today? She looked at Noah as if he'd save her. Tell her. Noah didn't move. Brooke, you locked my mother out of her own house. So she's punishing me, Brooke hissed. She's protecting herself, Noah said quietly. That quiet sentence did more damage to Brooke than any yelling could have. Her face flushed. So you're choosing her over your wife. Noah's jaw clenched. I'm choosing reality. Brooke's eyes darted around the kitchen, calculating again. I could almost see the routes she was considering. Who to call, what story to tell, which angle might get her traction. Then she tried a new one, the ugliest one. She turned to me, voice low and contemptuous. You think you're safe because you have papers and a lawyer. But you're alone, you're old, and you need help whether you admit it or not. The word old slid out like a blade. I set my mug down with a soft click. I am not alone, I said evenly. I have a deed, a mind, and now a record. Noah's hands balled into fists at his sides. Brooke continued, faster now, the mask slipping. If you kick me out, Noah will resent you. He'll regret it. And you'll sit here in this big house with your little tea and your little routines until something happens and no one finds you. Noah's voice snapped. Stop. Brooke ignored him. That's what you want, isn't it? Control until the end. I stood up, slowly, not threatening. Final. I survived childbirth without anesthesia, I said calmly. I buried a good man. I paid this house off. You will not scare me with loneliness because you're losing your leverage. Brooke's breath hitched, but she recovered. So what? You're calling the police? No, I replied. Not right this second. Relief flashed across her face. Then I finished the sentence. I'm calling the fraud department and the detective assigned to my report, and I'm changing every access point you've ever touched, starting today. Her face fell again. Noah stepped forward. Brooke, pack a bag. Go to your sister's. We need space. She stared at him as if he'd struck her. You can't do this, she whispered. I can, he said, voice shaking but firm, because you did something I can't undo. Brooke's eyes turned glassy with rage and humiliation. She stormed past us toward the stairs, and I heard drawers yanked open, hangers scraped, a suitcase dragged from under the bed. I didn't follow. Instead, I opened my notebook and wrote down the time, the phrases she used, and the fact that she'd admitted on record, out loud, that she sent the documents. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Evelyn Carter. A calm voice said, "Ms. Carter, this is the bank's fraud department returning your call. We need to verify a few details about a power of attorney submission." I looked at Noah, and he looked back at me. "Good," I said into the phone, "because I have plenty of details." The fraud officer's voice was measured, almost gentle. "Ms. Carter, we received a digital submission this morning requesting account oversight authority. It was flagged automatically due to signature irregularities and inconsistent metadata. We need to confirm, did you authorize any power of attorney?" "No," I said clearly. "I did not." "Did you sign any documents granting authority to a third party?" "No." There was the faint sound of typing. "Understood. We will permanently reject the submission and escalate this to our internal investigation team. We also recommend filing an identity theft affidavit." "It's already underway," I replied. Noah was standing very still across from me, listening to every word. "Good," the officer said. "We will need to log the name of the submitting party." I gave Brooke's full legal name, spelling it slowly. Upstairs, the sound of the suitcase dragging stopped. A door closed. The fraud officer continued, "One more thing. The submission included a secondary request." My fingers tightened slightly around the phone. "What request?" "A preliminary property lien inquiry. It appears someone was exploring options for leveraging home equity." For a second, the room seemed to tilt. Noah's face drained of color. "What?" I swallowed once. "Was any lien filed?" "No, ma'am. The inquiry was incomplete and did not proceed." "But it was initiated." "Initiated. Not hypothetical, not protective. Active." "Please document that in full," I said quietly, "and send written confirmation of all attempted actions to my new P.O. Box address." "I will," the officer replied. "And Miss Carter?" "Yes." "You acted quickly. That matters." When I ended the call, the silence in the kitchen felt different again. Not heavy, not tense. Revealing. Noah stared at me. "She tried to leverage the house?" "She explored it," I said evenly. "That's enough." Upstairs, footsteps approached again. Brooke descended slowly, suitcase in hand. Her face was pale, but her chin was lifted in defiance. "You're making me out to be some kind of criminal," she said coldly. I met her gaze. "You inquired about placing a lien against my house." Her composure cracked for a fraction of a second. "That's not true." "It's logged," I replied. She looked at Noah. "You're believing this?" He didn't answer immediately. He looked exhausted, older somehow. "The bank confirmed it," he said finally. Brooke's jaw tightened. "It was hypothetical." "No," I corrected softly. "It was procedural." She took a step toward me. "We needed options. Do you know how much pressure we're under? How expensive everything is? You sit here with a fully paid property while we struggle." "I worked for this property," I said. "Struggle is not permission." She laughed bitterly. "You're going to sit on that house until you die, aren't you?" "Yes," I said calmly, "unless I choose otherwise." The simplicity of that answer seemed to enrage her more than any argument. Noah stepped forward, voice low. "Brooke, did you plan to take out equity without telling her?" "I was exploring solutions," she snapped. "To what problem?" he demanded. "Our future," she shot back. "And hers?" he asked. That question hung in the air like a verdict. Brooke's eyes flicked between us, calculating again, But the calculation was failing now. Every new piece of information made her position smaller. "You think this ends well for you?" she whispered to me. "I think it ends legally," I replied. Her grip tightened on the suitcase handle. "You're destroying your relationship with your son." I looked at Noah. He looked back at me, not as a child, not as a mediator, as a man seeing the consequences of someone else's choices. "I didn't forge anything," I said quietly. Brooke inhaled sharply, fury flashing again. "You'll regret this." "Perhaps," I answered, "but I will regret silence more." She turned abruptly and walked toward the door. Noah didn't stop her this time. At the threshold, she paused and looked back one last time. "This isn't finished," she said. "No," I replied evenly. "It's documented." The door closed behind her. The house exhaled. Noah stood there for a long moment, staring at the door she'd just walked through. Then he looked at me, and his voice came out strained. "Mom, if this becomes criminal, it already is," I said softly. "The only question left is how far she intended to take it." And somewhere beneath the quiet, I felt it. The tipping point was close. Very close. The detective called 2 days later. I was in my garden, kneeling beside the rosemary bush, trimming it carefully so it wouldn't grow wild and woody. Control what you can. Prune what overreaches. "Ms. Carter?" the voice said when I answered. "Yes." "This is Detective Harris. I've reviewed the initial report and the documentation forwarded from your bank. We'd like you to come in to provide a formal statement." "I'll be there this afternoon," I replied. Inside the house, Noah sat at the dining table staring at nothing. He hadn't gone back to Brooke's sister's place. He hadn't gone anywhere, really. He was suspended between what he thought his marriage was and what it had revealed itself to be. "They called?" he asked quietly. "Yes." He swallowed. "Are you pressing charges?" "I am cooperating," I said evenly. At the precinct, the fluorescent lights were unforgiving. Detective Harris was younger than I expected, but her eyes were sharp and patient. She laid everything out on the table: the forged POA, the digital submission records, the attempted lien inquiry, the metadata showing timestamps and originating IP address. All of it pointed in one direction. "She submitted this the same morning you were with your attorney," Harris said calmly, "after police had already been to your residence." "Yes," I replied. "That matters," she added. I gave my statement slowly, clearly. No exaggeration, no theatrics. Just facts. When I finished, Harris folded her hands. "Based on the evidence, we have probable cause for attempted identity theft, attempted fraud, and forgery. Whether charges are filed will depend on the district attorney, but this is not minor." I felt something settle in my chest. Not triumph. Finality. Noah had insisted on coming. He sat beside me, pale, silent. "Does she know?" he asked. "She will," Harris said. That afternoon, 2 patrol cars pulled into my driveway. Oh, my dears. This is the moment. Police at the door, evidence on the table, truth exposed. If you were in Evelyn's place, would you follow through with charges or stop here? Tell me honestly in the comments. I stood at the window as Brooke stepped out of a rideshare, confusion crossing her face at the sight of the officers. She froze halfway up the walk. One officer approached her calmly, spoke, asked questions. Even from inside, I could see the shift in her posture. Defiance first, then disbelief, then the sharp flicker of fear. She looked toward the house. toward me. Our eyes met through the glass. For a moment, she seemed small, not powerful, not calculating, just someone who had believed she could push an old woman aside and found out the law doesn't measure age, it measures action. Noah stood beside me now. "I didn't think it would go this far," he whispered. "She did," I replied. Outside, Brooke's voice rose briefly, protesting, explaining, insisting. The officers remained calm. One of them gestured toward the patrol car. She didn't resist, not physically. But her eyes never left the house as they guided her toward the back seat. The door closed with a solid, irreversible sound. I exhaled slowly. This wasn't revenge. This was consequence. And for the first time since my key had jammed in that lock, I felt something close to peace. The house felt different the moment the patrol cars left my driveway. Not lighter, exactly. More honest. Like the air had stopped pretending. Noah stood on the porch for a long time after, hands in his pockets, staring at the damp tire tracks in the gravel. He looked like a man trying to find the exact moment he should have spoken up, the exact second he could have prevented all of this. "You don't have to stay here," I told him gently. He didn't look at me. "I don't know where else to go." "That's not my problem to solve," I said, not unkindly. "But I won't watch you drown in indecision either." He swallowed hard. "I didn't think she'd do that. The lien thing. The forged signature. I thought she was just organized." "Organized people don't practice someone else's name," I replied. We went inside. I put my kettle on again, my reliable old ritual, and I set 2 slices of bread into the toaster. The smell of warm crust always made the house feel inhabited, like it was still mine and not a battlefield. Noah sat at the table and finally spoke in a voice so small it almost made me angry. "She said you never respected her." I buttered the toast slowly. "Respect isn't something you demand while stealing." He nodded, eyes fixed on the table. "I kept trying to keep peace." "I know," I said, "but peace isn't real if it's built on my silence." That afternoon, I made calls like a woman doing storm preparation. Each one was a nail in place. I called the post office and confirmed my mail forwarding to the P.O. box. I called my insurance company and placed a note on my policy. No changes without in-person verification and 2 forms of ID. I called my investment firm and asked them to add a verbal passphrase, something no one would guess. I chose "Patashu." Noah blinked when he heard it. "Why that?" "Because it's funny," I said, "and because Brooke wouldn't know it if it hit her in the face." For the first time in days, he almost smiled. Then it fell away again. By evening, I had a security company scheduled for the next morning. New cameras, a new alarm panel, door sensors. A keypad code no one else would ever know. I wasn't turning my house into a fortress because I was scared. I was doing it because boundaries should be physical, not just emotional. When the technician arrived, he was polite and brisk, walking room to room with a tablet. He asked who lived here. "Me," I said. He glanced at Noah. "And him?" "He's visiting," I said simply. Noah didn't argue. He just looked down, ashamed. After the technician left, I sat in my living room and opened a small wooden box I hadn't touched in years. Inside were photographs. Noah as a boy with missing front teeth. Noah at graduation. Noah holding a fishing rod too big for his hands. My husband beside him in every frame until he wasn't. I didn't cry. I just sat with the truth. Love does not guarantee loyalty. It never did. That night, Noah knocked on my bedroom door like a guest. "Mom?" he said quietly. I'm thinking of staying at a hotel. That's wise, I replied. He hesitated. Do you hate me? I looked at him for a long moment. Noah, hate would be simpler. What I feel is disappointment and relief that I woke up. His face crumpled a little. I'm sorry. I know, I said. But sorry doesn't rewind time. It just decides what you do next. He nodded, then left. I slept deeply for the first time since the lock had jammed. In the morning, I met Harold again. We sat across from each other, and he slid a set of documents toward me. A revised will, he said, and a living trust option, if you prefer. You can also designate a neutral third party as executor, someone who won't be pressured. I read the pages slowly. Does this mean I'm cutting Noah out? I asked. It means, Harold replied, that you're making decisions with clear eyes. Clear eyes. That was the phrase I'd needed. I signed nothing that day. Not yet. Not because I hesitated, because I wanted every choice to be deliberate, not reactive. On the drive home, I stopped at a small bakery and bought a box of kouign-amann, the kind with caramelized edges that crackle when you bite them. Little layers of butter and sugar stubbornly holding their shape. At home, I sat at my kitchen table alone with a cup of coffee and one pastry. The house was quiet, yes, but it wasn't empty. It was mine. And whatever came next, court dates, paperwork, Noah's decisions, I would meet it as myself, not as the helpless old woman Brooke tried to invent. I got my keys back in the most ordinary way. No dramatic music, no shouting, no triumphant speech. Just a manila envelope delivered to Harold's office with my name typed neatly on the front, and a request for me to sign a receipt. Inside were three things: the original spare keys Brooke had taken from my kitchen drawer, a new key Brooke had copied without asking, and a short letter from her attorney, carefully worded, heavy on misunderstanding, light on accountability. Harold slid the keys toward me across his desk. These are yours, he said, legally and practically. I picked them up and felt my shoulders loosen in a way I hadn't noticed was clenched. The metal was cool, familiar, and suddenly I was back on my porch again. The first moment that key wouldn't turn, the first humiliation Brooke tried to staple to my name. Not anymore. Does this mean it's over? I asked. Harold didn't sugarcoat it. The criminal portion will proceed as the district attorney decides. But the immediate threat, access, authority, financial interference, that part is contained. You did the right things quickly. Contained. That was the word. Like a fire stopped before it reached the next house. When I left his office, Noah was waiting in the lobby. He stood when he saw the keys in my hand, and his face tightened, like he wanted to smile and couldn't decide if he deserved to. They gave them back, he said quietly. They had to, I answered. We walked outside into clean winter air. Noah followed me to my car, then stopped, hands shoved deep into his pockets. Brooke called me, he said, from her sisters. She said I should convince you to drop everything. I looked at him. And what did you say? His throat worked. I said, I can't ask her to drop the truth. I held his gaze for a long moment. Good. He nodded, eyes glassy. She's furious. She says you ruined her life. Noah, I said gently, your wife tried to take mine. He flinched, but he didn't argue. We drove back to my house separately. I pulled into the driveway and sat for a moment with the engine off, keys in my palm. The maple tree's branches tapped lightly against one another like dry fingers. The new security camera under the eaves blinked. My alarm panel glowed near the front door. I wasn't scared of my own entryway anymore. Inside, the house smelled like coffee and wood and the faint lemon oil I use on my cabinets. I set the keys on the counter, then picked them back up, one by one, and put them on a new ring with a small brass tag. Harold gave me that morning, property owner. It was blunt, almost funny, but I liked it. Noah arrived an hour later, standing in my doorway like someone asking to be led into a life he'd taken for granted. "I found a place," he said, "a short-term rental." "That's wise," I replied. He swallowed. "I don't know what happens to us." "I do," I said calmly. "You decide what kind of man you are when there's a cost." His eyes dropped. I should have stopped her sooner. "Yes," I said. "You should have." The truth didn't need softening. He'd had plenty of softness. It nearly got me erased. He looked up again. "Can we start over? Not like before, just honestly." I considered him, my son, my child, a grown man who'd let someone call me old lady and hoped time would smooth it out. "I'm willing to rebuild," I said slowly, "but it will be slow, and it will be on terms that protect me." He nodded quickly. "Whatever you need." "I need you to understand something," I said. "Love is not access. Family is not permission." He swallowed hard. "I understand." That evening, after he left, I sat alone at my kitchen table and wrote a short list on a yellow pad. Not a dramatic manifesto, just decisions. 1. My mail stays at the P.O. box. 2. No one keeps spare keys without my written consent. 3. Any future legal authority is discussed in my presence with my attorney in daylight. 4. My home remains mine until I choose otherwise. I folded the list and slid it into my notebook, right next to the timeline of Brooke's actions. Evidence beside boundaries. Past beside future. I stood at my front door one last time that night and turned the key in the lock. Smooth, certain, mine. Then I turned the deadbolt, listened to it settle, and walked back into my house without looking over my shoulder. My dears, you just watched an older woman refuse to disappear quietly. Do you think Evelyn was right to let the law take its course? Or should she have stopped once she got her keys back? Like, subscribe, and tell me your honest take in the comments.